and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. This is Jeremy here with the Carolina Panthers today, and talking about their off season, and more specifically, trying to focus in on some of their draft picks. I got Matt here with me. Matt, you
What's
want
up?
sup? That's what you got for me. You got sup.
That's what I got for you.
Yeah, whatever works, whatever gets the job done, I guess. So he has a video coming out later today on the. I don't think you told me who we doing today.
We're doing the St. Louis Cardinals.
St. Louis Cardinals. So if you're looking forward to that, that'll be out in a few hours. So make sure you come on back and look out for that. Um, Before we get started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the link to our Discord and our social media down below. Also, any clips that I don't specifically pull from the ESPN draft page, I'll have the video link to where I got it from down in the description below, so you can go ahead and check out the original video there. But other than that, I think we're ready to get into it. You have anything else you want to add, Matt?
No, not really.
All right, so let's get started on the Carolina Panthers. So, as you can see, this is just Christian McCaffrey highlights, and there's two reasons for that. One, they were 5-11 last year, and they did quite literally what we like to call blowing up the team. Basically, everybody went. Only they had moving pieces everywhere essentially. They fired Ron Rivera and signed Matt Rule to be their new head coach. He was coach over at Baylor. And honestly, last year it felt like Christian McCaffrey was their whole offense. And that was before Greg Olsen retired, who they have not really found, in my opinion, uh, a solid tight end to come in and replace him. And then over on the defensive side, Luke Kuechly also retired, who was their leading tackler last year and absolutely the quarterback of that defense. So um, as we talk about them blowing up the team, they traded away Kyle Allen, who was their starter for most of the season last year, given an injury to Cam Newton. And then they also let Cam Newton walk away. So both of their top two quarterbacks are gone. They signed Teddy Bridgewater, and they still have Will Greer. And then they also brought in PJ Walker from the XFL, who is technically listed as the backup quarterback right now. So they have basically a whole new. I mean, Will Greer is coming back, but they have two brand new quarterbacks to what will be a completely different offensive system, I would imagine. So um, this is going to be interesting year. Let's say that to be a Panthers fan. Um, they also released Eric Reed, which is another loss for that defense over at the safety position. They did sign Robbie Anderson, and they still have Curtis Samuel or Sam. Well, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with pronouncing names. Um, and I can't remember his first name. It's Moore, something Moore. Yeah, as you can tell, fantastic production quality. So yeah, DJ Moore. Um, those three guys will lead the wide receiving core there for them. In my opinion, that would have been something that they could have looked to improve on in the draft. And as I'll get to in a second, they focused very heavily on their defense, and they're going to stick with those three guys to lead their wide receiving core. And I personally feel like they could have used another piece or two along that wide receiving core. Um, they also did. Panthers fans can rejoice over the fact that they did sign Christian McCaffrey at only 24 years of age to a 5-year contract extension, which is anybody who watched him play last year should be ecstatic because he gets the ball in his hands and he just makes plays happen. Um, so just some specific stats on their offense because I was curious, right? Because the joke is that Christian McCaffrey was the Panthers offense last year, so I went and I did some research. So Christian McCaffrey had 1,000-yard seasons both in rushing and receiving. He had almost 1,400 yards rushing and just over 1,000 yards receiving, right? Now the Panthers themselves were listed as 20th in the pass game at just over 228 yards per game, and 14th in the run at just under 87 yards per game. Now, if you're wondering where I'm going with this, Christian
Jesus
McCaffrey,
Christ.
Christian McCaffrey averaged almost 63 yards per game through the air and almost. Oh no, I'm sorry. They averaged 114. The team averaged 114 yards on the ground, and Christian McCaffrey accounted for 87 of those. So percentage-wise, for anybody who's counting, um, for per game total offense, they were 19th in the league at an average of 300 and almost 342 yards per game. Christian McCaffrey accounted for 149 and a half of those per game, or about 44% of their total offense last season.
Oh my God.
So
You told me you were gonna have some wild stat. I think it's a really amazing experiment the Panthers are doing to see how one man can be an entire, putting their entire offensive plan into one man's shoulders. I think it's really impressive to watch. To watch,
as a Christian McCaffrey fantasy owner last season, loved to see it.
Oh, same. Christian McCaffrey did nuts for me. I like there was one game where the Panthers I think they only had like a field goal, maybe I don't think they had a touchdown that game, and he still put up like 30 points for me. It's just like the
He just
guy was
makes stuff
literally did
happen.
everything.
But let's just say this. I think to say mildly, having one man responsible for 44% of your offense is not where you want to be.
And it's unsustainable.
And
It's like
I would
even if
be,
he does, like, is it fair on McCaffrey that he has to be the literal only reason why the team does anything?
and he's so young. I would hate to see him get burned out because he's just got so much talent. And then, obviously, um, if you watched last season, he would be so gassed by halfway through the fourth quarter that it would be crunch time, and they would have to be sitting him out whole drives because he's just completely gassed from being the absolute workhorse for that offense for the first 3 quarters. So not only was he 44% of the total offense, but he was also sitting out full drives just to catch his breath. So, um, oh my God, how did he catch that? Wow,
I'm
that was a
wondering if
double bobble.
the Panthers will extend this experiment, see if he can play defense too.
Honestly, that's a great catch that he made. I'm sorry, that just caught my eye here. Um, but yeah, so you're looking to, in my opinion, I would have been looking to. That's my franchise player right there. I want to be able to protect him. Let me get him some help, right? But it in the draft they had 7 picks in the draft and all 7 are defense. So I guess it's time to move over to the defense. They still have Shaq Thompson, who's a solid linebacker for them, but I did mention that they lost Luke Kuechly, who was just the absolute quarterback of that defense. He was an outstanding player. He was injury prone, which was unfortunate because he was outstanding when he was on the field. But defensively, they were 23rd against the 23rd overall. They gave up the 23rd most yards in the league, 13th against the pass, and 29th against the run. So they clearly needed significantly more help against the run than they did against the pass, and that is reflected in their first pick, who is somebody I tend to be very high on, Mr. Derek Brown. He's a defensive end out of Penn State, and to be honest with you, he just looks like he has all the makings to become a monster in this league. He's already listed as a starting defensive tackle for them if you go on according to ESPN's Panthers depth chart. Um, and one of his coaches was quoted as saying, uh, I actually got that from this video right here. The best defensive lineman I ever coached was Reggie White. The second is Derek Brown. That's high praise, considering Reggie White is the legend of the game and is a NFL
One of the
Hall of
most
Famer.
decorated like defensive players of all time. I think one of the most or the most. Like, it's just
That is very very high praise coming from him. He's looking to be a top tier run defender. Um, and he was such a force that teams were forced to run away from him. It just seemed like there was no touchdowns to be had up the middle. He was just plugging the gap, and it was just not going to happen. He, to this point, had not been an elite pass rusher, but he's beginning to show flashes of development. Um, with the long arms and quickness he has massive potential. As you see him bat down a couple balls there. Now we're gonna
I
go
love
back for a
that hit.
second.
I love that hit so much.
I was a little slower
It's
getting through
so
it than I was. I wanted to say, watch this hit. This is just a massive hit in an open field against a pretty. I mean, that's he's got the ball in his possession. That's just an open field tackle,
you
and
could
you
you could
can
just see.
You can
You just
see the
see the
fear in
guy.
his
He's like
eyes.
shitting. He just shit himself right there. Like he's just like, oh no.
You
He
can
knows this is gonna hurt.
you can see the fear in this guy's eyes when he sees Derek Brown
You don't
coming.
even need to see his eyes to know there's fear in them. Like
No,
it's
no,
just
yeah, exactly. So, anyways, I just wanted to that's just a massive hit. I'm sorry I had to run that back a couple times, but and more
ugh.
importantly, you know, he doesn't go helmet to helmet. That's a massive hit tackling the right way. Just want to point that out real quick. Um, but as you saw earlier here, he's just got long arms and just potential to get into the quarterback's way. There's quite a few times when he's just, even if he's not an elite pass rusher, just having that size and length and just that overall power is just a force to be reckoned with on the interior of that line. He can get his hands up. He can cause problems for a quarterback. So I love the pick. I think that he's going to be a defensive stud, an anchor for that team, and a bright spot where they need it the most. Um, but one man does not make a defense, and so if they wanted to continue commit themselves to being better against the run this year, they needed to go out and they needed to make another selection. They needed to come out and double down on that, and that's what they did here with drafting this defensive end out of Penn State. I would try the name, but I'm not going to embarrass myself. It would be disrespectful to this young gentleman here for me to attempt to pronounce his name, so I'm going to let it slide. Um, but he has good size and strength, and he looks to be a solid pass rusher, and he has the potential to just wreak havoc against whoever he lines up against. He's got good size and good strength, and he can be able to set the edge against some of those outside runs, and that's something that'll be very beneficial. If you can contain it to the inside of that line, where we just talked about the force that you could potentially have on the interior of that line, as long as knock on wood, nothing goes wrong, and no injuries with Derek Brown, and his game makes the transition well. But you know, they've given themselves two young guys that are just ready to go out and make plays and make an instant impact for this team. So he's technically listed as a second string left end, but I would expect him to make an immediate impact this year. Um, he's just athletically he's gifted, and he's just got the ability to just be a complete game changer for a defense that struggled against the run, and just overall just create pressure situations on the opposing offense. So that's another good pick for them. But coming down here, as you can see, um, the next five picks here all went defense as well, and so that's kind of what concerns me. Um, I don't individually dislike any of the picks really. I think they all have upside, and I think that the Panthers, unfortunately, I hate to say it, you guys are kind of in the middle of a rebuild right now. You're gonna have to just fill in spots as you go, and it could be a few years before that team is able to completely rebuild itself back up to where it wants to be. But it does seem like they missed out on an opportunity to go and get some help for their new signing, Teddy Bridgewater. I do think Teddy Bridgewater, by the way, will help open up the offense a little bit. And I know obviously all teams deal with injuries, so the Panthers had dealt with their fair share of injuries as well. But I do think that if Teddy Bridgewater, if he can stay healthy, um, that can be a big addition to that team and be able to help them spread the ball more. But I do feel like one of these picks, I don't necessarily know which one because the Panthers just lacked all around depth in my opinion. So all of these picks filled a need, but I do think that it would have been nice to have seen them go out and get another wide receiver or even a second string running back. They don't really have an established second string running back right now. I was talking about Christian McCaffrey earlier, right? We've been seeing what he was able to do all year last year and even the year before. So their listed running back two for the season. His name is Reggie Bonifant. He had all for all season last season, and I understand the fact that they had other running backs on the roster last season, so he didn't get that many touches. But just so you know who their RB2 is, he was on the Panthers last season. He had 2 first downs and 1 touchdown. He had it was and the touchdown was a 59-yard run with about 3.5 minutes left in week 5 against the Jaguars. So he had on one play, he had 59 yards, and his total season was 116 yards rushing. So he got over just over half his total rushing on one play. I did see he only really had like 16 attempts or something really small. So obviously, I'm not saying that he's a bad player at all. He obviously, he has the potential to make explosive plays, hence that 59-yard run. But my point is that you don't have an established guy, and did he give you enough? Did he show you enough in those few snaps that he had last year that he's really ready to be able to contribute at a high level so that you can get Christian McCaffrey off the field, stop him from getting injured, and overall just make for a well-rounded offensive unit. So I'm not saying that any of these next few picks I'll talk about are bad picks, but I would have liked to have seen them go out and draft either a backup running back or a wide receiver, just some kind of skill player, or even tight end. They lost Greg Olsen. They don't really have a guy to replace him. Just something to help out that offense. So Christian McCaffrey is not going to be nearly 50% of the team's offense again next season. But with that being said, the next guy I was going to talk about is Jeremy Chin here out of Southern Illinois. Uh, he's a safety. He's got good size and speed. He's just kind of got a good blend of everything. He's got good speed, size, and length. So physically, he's just all there. He has the stature and leaping ability to contest and win 50-50 balls, which is going to be huge for that defense as they look to replace safety and Eric Reed. Being able to um, go out and make those plays is something that they're going to value. Um, he's very speedy. Like I said, he ran a 4.45 on his 40-yard dash at the combine, and he's got a 41-inch vertical. So he's just an athlete that's ready to go out there and make plays. I'd say he's not a great tackler, but he's above average, and he knows how to use his speed to close, as you just saw him break up a pass there. So um, he looks as if he could be very versatile. Um, as an Eagles fan, I love me some versatile safeties. We saw it come in huge for us with Malcolm Jenkins, and obviously it's going to be interesting to see what he can develop into. But having that versatile safety that you can move all around the field and he can just step up and make plays for you, that's invaluable. Um, Next up, I'm going to go to corner this time, and they picked up Troy Pride Jr. out of I believe Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame. Um, he has another good guy, with great speed, and he's especially good in zone coverage. But he's got shorter arms, and he struggles to track the ball vertically. So he's going to be able to use that speed to keep pace with almost any wide receiver in the league. But what it's going to come down to is how is he able to track the ball? It's great that they have somebody that can at least attempt to keep up with Tyreek Hill speed wise. But if he can't track the ball and Tyreek Hill is just going to jump over him and make the play, that's not you know that beneficial. So speed isn't everything. He's definitely going to have to work on that ability to kind of track the ball as he goes down the field. Um, but that being said, he is listed as a starting corner, so look for him to make an impact early. And I'm interested to see how his transition to the NFL will be. The game is going to be a lot faster. Obviously, it's just a completely different game than watching college football. So I would keep an eye on him. And he has it's a kind of a high risk high reward situation, right? He could step up and he could be a great defender for them right out of the box, or you could be looking at a situation where he could just get exposed on kind of deeper crossing patterns or just anything that requires him to be able to track that ball as he goes vertically. That could be an issue. Um, Next up, and I'm going to kind of breeze through these next two guys here, and then um, we'll kind of wrap this up. Kenny Robinson out of West Virginia. Um, he's shown flashes, but nothing solid to say. We are sure that this guy is going to be able to contribute. He's got good awareness, and he's willing to come down and make a play against a ball carrier. So he's willing to, you know, yeah. I'm sorry, I never said that he was a safety. I'm sorry, but as a safety, he's willing to come down and make a play against a ball carrier, runner. So that's always something good to have. But um, he is listed as a third string, and I think that'll be a good place for him to potentially be able to develop and see how he's going to be able to make that transition. Again, all these guys have potential. That's why they were in the draft, but it's going to be interesting to see. if any of these kind of late round picks will make impacts. I mean, the first four, 3 4 rounds, usually there's talent to be had there. It's usually you may not know how quality of a player you're gonna get, like in terms of is he going to be completely elite and Pro Bowl kind of level, or is it going to be kind of just a role player? But you'll find something. It's very rare that it completely busts in the early rounds. But as we get into later rounds here, there's a lot more question marks. So the same deal with Bravey and Roy. He had a breakout senior year, and he did a better job of getting out blocks, is what I was able to find online. But he's listed as a backup defensive tackle. Um, but anytime that's a 6th round pick that they were, or a 5th round pick, whatever. It was a sixth
Six
round
round
pick.
pick who is going to be your backup defensive tackle. Like that just it screams about the team. Like it's
And he did have, again, I wasn't able to even really find a whole lot. I did go and I watched some video on him, and like there was nothing that really flashed out to me. It just kind of seemed like, you know, yeah, he had a better senior season for sure. But it didn't really seem like he was doing anything to me that really stuck out. Um, and same thing with Stanley Thomas Oliver down here. I mean, in the 7th round, there's a lot of like potential flaws in his game. So, um, we'll kind of let that one ride itself out. But the one other note, so to kind of wrap up my opinion on how the draft went, right? I think that they missed out on some potential depth chart fillers and roster fillers. I think that they could have used a skill position player, although that wasn't the complete end of the world that they weren't able to get. But they also didn't draft any backup in offensive line. Tyler Larson is technically listed as their backup for 3 positions along the interior of the offensive line. He's listed as the backup for both left guard, center, and right guard. So depth is something for this team that concerns me a little bit going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how they piece that um, together. But I'm just kind of quickly glancing back here at the depth chart, and there's no names to me. And obviously, all of you Panthers fans out there, you guys know your team a lot better than me. I could be completely sleeping on somebody. It's absolutely possible. But like, there's no names. There's not very many names on here that completely jump out to me and say, hey, this guy, he's the guy. He could really step up and make a huge jump this season. Like I don't see that guy. Now again, I could be completely sleep on somebody. It's completely possible, but this team, as they look to rebuild, I definitely think that they have some holes that they're gonna be looking to fill in. And draft wise, I think that they missed an opportunity to fill in at some of those holes. It looks like they doubled or tripled up on positions that, while they were needs, absolutely. If you've already drafted at that position, you know, I would have personally liked to have seen them go and try to fill in other holes. So draft grade wise, they're not an F. I'm sorry, the base is just an F. I'm gonna say, you know, a C plus. Oh, I'm sorry, a C plus. I would say C bordering C plus. I think they did a good job with those. I think they really hit those first 2 picks. Um, And no, you know what? I'll say those first 3 picks. I would say they really hit Derek Brown, the defensive end out of Penn State. Who again? I'm sorry, that name. Matt? Do you want to try to pronounce the name? This gentleman right here.
I can't even see it that well from my screen. So
Oh, it's this guy right here.
Gross Matos. Like I don't know.
Mm. I can't. The way that name, I don't know, it looked a lot rougher to me than when you just said it. But Yeturgros Matos, I guess that's how we'll go with it. I apologize if we're butchering that name. Um, I think that Derek Brown, him and Jeremy Chin, I like those 3 picks. Troy Pride, I think he's got a lot of potential, for sure, but he's a little bit more of a question mark for me. He's got to be able to defend against the deep pass, especially if he's going to be covering a lot of those speedy guys. There'll be a lot of quick crossing routes, but then there will be the occasional just blow the coverage off the defense, kind of just go deep kind of plays. So His inability to track the ball deep is something that kind of um, is a question mark for me. But yeah, I'm gonna give them. I would say they were borderline C, uh, and C plus. I'll go ahead and give them the nod and give them the C plus because I'm sure that there are a lot of guys that are a lot smarter than me that made these picks. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But I do think that they missed out some serious opportunities to kind of add a piece to that offense or depth somewhere else. It just felt like they kept in doubling up on positions they had already drafted. So that's where I'm gonna land. Do you have an opinion, Matt?
No, I mean like the first two picks seemed like really solid picks, and like you had a choice to make, defense or offense. I think the defense is definitely the right way to focus, but outside the first two picks, I just don't see anything that I feel like other teams with worse rounds that we've talked about so far made better use of their later picks, and so like I don't feel like they, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean,
I feel like
I'm sorry,
that's how I
continue.
feel. I feel like the first two really strong picks, and then the rest are just kind of like it's just not. I don't think they had as good a draft as other teams did.
Yeah, I am kind of just glancing around and kind of seeing what they, you know, with who they drafted, who did they miss out on? That's the other thing to keep in mind. So I was really high. Speaking of Isaiah Simmons and the Cardinals, I will be remaking a Cardinals video sometime probably this weekend. I did not the way that this specific series has been run by me has been changed a lot since its beginning when I did that Cardinals video. So I will be going back and remaking that and going a lot more in depth in it. But I'm really high on that kid Isaiah Simmons, but I do think that Derek Brown fit what their need was perfectly, and I like that pick. I think he was the right move there. Um, and again, I think they made the right decision here. I don't dislike their decision to go defensive end and not, offensive guard out of Louisiana. I think that, they have a solid enough, you know, I feel like defense had more glaring holes than the offense did, so that makes sense for them to go and select that there. But uh, I agree with you, Matt. I think that that we covered a lot of, or not covered a lot. We've only done, this is our fifth team that we've done, but it definitely seems like other teams made better. They did a better job of spreading out their picks, so they didn't double, triple up on one position, and it seems like that's kind of unfortunately the position that the Panthers found themselves in. Um, they ultimately just wound up. I mean, realistically, if you look at it, they went two defensive tackles, two cornerbacks, two safeties, and a defensive end. That's not a very wide net that they're casting with that draft. So if they pan out, they could have a great defense for the next few years. But if even just a couple of those picks, especially one of these first, I would say four picks here, any one of these first four picks don't pan out the way that they're expected to be, and then you start looking at the other holes on that roster, and it suddenly becomes a little scary. Even if they wanted to stick on defense, they have Shaq Thompson, as I brought up earlier, but they did lose Luke Kuechly. They needed another linebacker. Um, and if you come look real quick, they got Shaq Thompson and Tahir Whitehead as their two starting middle linebacker, and then Jermaine Carter their other starting linebacker. So Shaq Thompson is a name that jumps off to me. He's definitely had some good years here in Carolina, but other than that, I think that they could have shown, even if they couldn't have gotten a replacement starter, they definitely could have gotten somebody that would have fit in well among the depth chart there and been able to kind of rotate in and out for the defense. So um, that's my 2 cents. I think they did a good job, but I think they definitely could have covered um, their bases a little bit more and kind of spread a little bit of wider of a cast with the Flyers that they took in their 7 picks. But unless you have anything else to add, that's mad. Wow, I'm sorry. Unless you have anything else to add, Matt, um, I think that's it for me. Panthers fans, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to roast your team that bad, but it's unfortunate that they're kind of been forced into a rebuild. There was a few years. I mean, there's the one year that you went to the Super Bowl, um, and then you were never able to recapture the magic of that year. So it's unfortunate that that team is going to have to be broken down and rebuilt. But that's why this podcast is named "Blow Up the Team." Sometimes you just, well, that's not
You
the
are the
full
first real
story.
blown up team. Actually, no, we did the Orioles yesterday, so
This is the first team that I've personally covered that they straight up blew up their team. They had, and I think they had to. They have a lot of moving pieces, and I think it was time. They needed to start their rebuild. But with that being said, if Matt doesn't have anything else to add, I'd say that that's it for me. Um, Make sure to come back
yeah.
later tonight, or tonight, later today, to check out Matt's video on the St. Louis Cardinals. Um, and you know, like, comment, subscribe. If I missed anything, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. If there's anything else you'd like to see us do, feel free to let us know that as well. Um, Check out our Discord and our other social media. And again, the Christian McCaffrey clips that I was showing throughout the video, the link to the original video will be posted in the description below. So go check that out as well. But closing statement, Matt. Anything?
No, I mean, like I said, the Christian McCaffrey experiment's gonna be really interesting this season.
Let's hope he's not. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest here. I did the math for that 44% number myself, and I really hope I messed up doing that math because if he genuinely was 44% of the total offense from last season, I'm sorry. Like that was not a number I found at all. That was math that I went and I did by hand myself, and I genuinely hope I like dropped a number somewhere or just calculated poorly or something because one man being 44% of your offense, it speaks to individual greatness, but for a team game, that's a little scary. But with that being said, um, we will. This is so Matt's St. Louis Cardinals comes out. Like I said, we keep saying later today. Go check that out, and then we are off until Monday unless I get that more in-depth Cardinals video, Arizona Cardinals video done and up. So other than that, we will see you on Monday. Peace.